Welcome to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Joyous conversations about what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about our one reality. You have nothing to fear. You are eternal and you are perfectly loved. Knowing the truth changes everything. Now, here's Roberta.
Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes, and I am so happy you can be with us today. Oh, my dear ones. Here at Seek Reality, we've been getting so many pitches from the agents of great-looking new books of late. I feel as if I'm just in a field of flowers I'm plucking and having fun with. But the problem is that we haven't had as much room as we'd like nowadays for some of our really great, slightly older and longer time guests. So I finally had to put my foot down because I want to have some people I've had on once back for a second time. I just have loved some of these people I've had on more recently. And one of our guests today is one of those wonderful recent guests I wanted to have back a second time. Our listeners enjoyed her very much the first time she was here. And despite the title of her book, Debbie Dobbins is not just your typical wealth mentor. Instead, she's all about helping entrepreneurs to rewrite their whole life stories about money, power, and human purpose. After building successful businesses herself, making millions, and teaching abundance for decades, Debbie found herself face to face with a cancer diagnosis, broke, and even on food stamps. I mean, it's hard to believe, but that kind of thing can happen to you in the middle of your life. That experience did not break Debbie, though. Instead, it activated her. Through feminine energy, intuition, and radical personal reinvention, she not only healed her body and rebuilt her wealth, but she reimagined what true success actually should mean for each of us. So now Debbie is the author of Your Inner Billionaire. That's why I said her title isn't quite what her book is about. She now markets as a potent blend of prosperity principles, spiritual truth, and no-nonsense plain talk. Her promotional materials tell us her work blends universal laws, quantum consciousness, and grounded strategy to help conscious entrepreneurs to claim their abundance, which is what, as you know, I'm all about too. Not just at the bank, but also in their bodies, their businesses, and their belief system. She calls herself the Queen of Magic for a reason. Her mission is to help others remember that they too hold the magic wand. Debbie Dobbins now leads global retreats. She teaches transformational courses, and she runs a high-impact mastermind called the Inner Billionaire Circle. She's helped thousands of women to reignite their wealth from the inside out, and many of them in what she calls their second act of life. And many women, as you know, now are going into their second act of life. Her teaching work is grounded in joy, in soul connection, and in the confident belief that abundance is not reserved for only the few, but it's what she calls a universal birthright. This is Debbie Dobbins' second Seek Reality visit, and she's someone I had decided when we had her on once, couldn't be just once, it had to be more than once. Debbie, welcome. I am so happy to have you finally back with us today.
I feel like I'm so special when you give those intros. They just make my heart just well up, and I almost started crying. So I really appreciate the introduction, and I'm just so excited to be here to share with your audience again. And I just feel as if we are in a shift, a complete shift on this planet. And I have said this multiple times in the past few months, that a lot of people are feeling a lot of chaos. And if you look at any kind of science, you have chaos before you have order when you're having shift and change. And so I'm just going to start out by saying to everybody that's listening, whatever we're experiencing today in this time and space that may feel like chaos, that is the time to rejoice and embrace, because we are on the precipice of something really, truly, and I use this word a lot of magical, because I am the Queen of Magic, but that just simply means that it's something that we don't even understand, but it is going to be so magnificent And truly, I'm so excited about not just my book. I just wrote another book, so we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm really just excited about this time on the planet, even though it seems to people a lot that there is chaos out there in the world in all different ways. And I got an email from somebody probably about an hour ago, and he was talking about the algorithms. And so, one of the things that I've been sharing to people, especially lately, is get off your screens, even though this is a good screen. But the fact of the matter is the algorithms that we're all being led by. So being out in nature and reading a good book, you have the opportunity to read all these beautiful books. As you just said, there's too many. How am I going to read them all? There's so much great information out there that is not an algorithm, that's not there designed to push a narrative that you may be in, which I tell everybody to challenge their beliefs in all of my books. So I just want to thank you again. This is a really wonderful opportunity. I love you and adore you so much. And of course, you're a native Texan, or you're not a native, you're a Texan like me right now. So yeah. I feel like we've got a little simpatico there going, but I'm excited to just see where our dialogue takes us today.
Well, now talk about what you do, because I believe, as you believe, that we are what we think, what we create with our minds, really. But it's not really about money. Money is like the fruit of what we are. But how do you help people to reinvent themselves? Because once people have gone through the first stage of their lives, and for many women, that's family and children, and then they get to be in their 50s somewhere, the kids are out of the house. Sometimes the husband is too. I kept my first husband, so, but still, we're free. And how do you help people when they say, okay, what next? And they still feel great. They don't feel that their life is over, but they're in their 50s somewhere. Yeah. What now? How do you help people answer that question?
I think one of the first steps, especially if you're in a generational shift, because first of all, we, especially women, but men as well, we have these seasons of our lives. And that once again goes back to programming, because the programming that we get now, and I just alluded to it a little bit about the internet and all the social media and all the algorithms, because literally algorithms are AI generated now. And so they drive whatever it is that you're thinking, believing, and feeling. And yet we've all had that experience throughout our lifetimes. We've all been taught whatever our story was, because I start my first, you're in a billionaire with your money story, but your money story comes from all the impressions that you receive when you're young. So we fall into line, literally, because we are taught, whoever our caregivers are, whoever our teachers are, this is how you do it. So let's just use a typical woman, not to diminish men at all, but a typical woman, especially in my generation, was taught that you need to get married, right? And college probably wasn't really the top priority. It could be now. And you have children, and then you take care of the family, and you might get a little job, right? You might have a side hustle, even though that's not what they called them back then. And it would be a nurse or a teacher or a secretary, right? And so what happens is we grow up with our structures and our programming. Now, granted, in generations that come after that, different things have happened for that same woman. She would have come into a family that, you go to college, but you still should get married. And then all of a sudden we're presented with this dynamic of, well, do I go to college or do I raise a family? And then women started getting programming that you get to do everything, but we didn't hear it as it's you should do everything. So the thing about it is one thing that I want everybody to understand is you have to begin to challenge your beliefs in order to move to a different place in your life. So that's where we began. Anybody that I coach and when I teach, it's okay, look at where you are and look at the story that you've been living in, because the story that you've been living in has brought you exactly where you are in this moment. And if you think or desire something else, then you have to be something else. So I have to begin to let loose of that story. I have to write a new one. And unraveling the story is where it becomes apparent that that's all it is. Because if we all begin to realize that we're just living in stories, we are writing the stories, we are producing the stories, we are directing the stories, and we are watching the story. So if we begin to realize that everything outside of us is created within, then we can change that. However, if we buy into the victim mentality that says everything that's happening outside of me is happening outside of me and I have to blame somebody and I can't and fill in the blank because of my circumstances, that's when we will always be victim to our circumstances. So the very first step is look at your story. What is it that you're telling yourself? What story would you like to rewrite? And then we begin down the path. How do we rewrite this story? And I deal with women in their second half of life, which is basically 47 plus, because, women are living older now. And the most common statement is that all there is, right? Because we've been told the story, you do this and you did it and you checked all the boxes. And as you said, now the kids have left, the husband either dies or you divorce or he's not there. I mean, in mental capacity,
there,
you are now creating your life.
but even if he is there, he wants you to be happy, and you're not going to be happy sitting in the house. You have a whole, literally half of your life still to live.
Yeah.
And you've got to invent it somehow.
Yeah. And so many women, and what's really sad is the women that I teach and coach, a lot of them have made that merge. They've decided to make a shift. It's very scary, I will say that. But what predicates that a lot of times is not just, oh, is that all there is? It's an actual physical disease or ailment. Literally, our bodies will repel. That's why when I talk in my books, it's about the body. The body always knows. The body knows all the information that we will ever need if we listen to it. And part of the problem is what we do in our society, all people's bodies know this, is that we mask what we're feeling because it then creates symptoms in chronic disease and a whole lot of other things. But we mask it with drugs instead of not illegal drugs, but legal drugs or any other thing. We mask and we take ourselves out by numbing ourselves. And this is a form of addiction that most people on the planet have addiction. But that doesn't mean, like in my case, I was, addicted to a substance. They're addicted to scrolling. They're addicted to anger. They're addicted to hate. They're addicted to screens. They're addicted to anything that's taking us and giving us a dopamine hit, which is our body saying, I'm uncomfortable. What does that mean? And instead of looking at what it means, we take something to numb ourselves out. And that doesn't have to be, alcohol or drugs. It's all of these things that we have in our world today that take us out of paying attention to who we are. And it really is becoming conscious of this physical body. And you shared in the beginning, it isn't about being a billionaire with a bank account with $1 billion in it. It's being a billionaire in your physical, your mental, your spiritual, and your financial, and all of these areas of our lives that we are neglecting. And then, the statistics show that mental health is off the chart. But the fact is it's all because we aren't paying attention to the fact that we have the ability to be, do, or have whatever we choose. No one's told us that. I mean, there are circles out there that are doing it, and you and I are in some of those circles. But the fact is that the media doesn't want us to believe that, meaning all of the media. I don't care if it's podcasts, it's social media. It thrives on telling you that you're not okay. Therefore, you need whatever I have. And I don't even care what that is. But if you're not okay, and this is your solution, rather than look within to see what is the truth of who I am? What is it that's causing me upset and angst and these emotions that I don't know how to deal with them? So I take something or I do something that numbs me out. And it really is just that simple. But yet we're so programmed throughout these thousands and thousands of years that we have to do things a certain way. And each generation, it gets different and it gets morphed. But I really love the idea that we are our own creators. We are just co-creating this experience. And once we acknowledge that, because we already have everything that we need, everything right here, right now, every single person listening to this, you already have every single thing that you could ever desire or need already within you. The only thing we have to do is accept it, activate it, and then expect it, look outside and say, yep, there it is. Because it's really that simple. And yet, what creeps in? Doubt, fear, lack of faith, all of those things. So when we begin to really acknowledge that we are it, then we don't have to look anyplace else for our itness, for our okayness.
And sometimes people will give themselves reasons which are really just excuses why they don't do what they want to do.
Yep.
I get emails from people, and they use me as the reason why this excuse makes sense. Years ago, I got an email from a woman who was in her 40s. She'd always wanted to be a doctor, but she hadn't done it. They couldn't afford it. She married, she had children. The children now were out of college, and she still wished there was enough money now. She could do it, but now she was too old. And I said, well, I don't think you're too old. I mean,
Right.
she was like in her 45 or something, give her an age. And I said, I don't think you're too old. And there's a shortage of people why don't you go to medical school? I'll bet you could go to medical school. Why don't you do that? Well, she's too old now. I said, you're not too old. Why don't you apply? I'll bet you could get in to some medical school. Well, no, I'm too old. I mean, I would be 50 and then I said, well, how old will you be in 5 years if you don't go to medical school?
Right.
I mean, people do this to themselves.
I know.
Think about this. How old will you be if you don't go to medical school? Yeah. And people will give themselves artificial excuses for not doing what they desperately want to do. It is so.
Our excuses are ours. That's the challenge. We are so attached to our own excuses, and they only make sense to us. So I want to share my excuse story that I always laugh at. That's in the book, and that is when I was years ago, I was supposed to move from the voice in my clairvoyant voice said, move to Wichita Falls, which is in North Texas. And I was living in California at the time. And I was laying in my nephew, I think he was 8 years old at the time, his bunk bed. And I kept hearing the voice saying, move to Wichita Falls. And I'm like, okay, first of all, because God, the universe talks to me that way. And I said, no. And here's the thing. The excuse I gave to this conversation that's between me and my maker, whatever that is, was I have a 500-pound piano that my grandmother bequeathed to me when she passed, that was in the condominium that I lived in California. And I just couldn't imagine in my mind how I was going to move that piano. Right. I mean, that is when I talk about it now, but at the time, so what I know is that people's excuses are so valid to them, right?
They are.
But in 2 weeks later, I was packed in a Ryder truck. The piano had been taken to a charity organization. And it was at that moment, I think in my life, that's been 25 years ago. But I know that people's excuses, and that's why another conversation that I have in the book is, when I was in my financial freedom course, that I had almost a $500,000 IRS tax lien, and I'm thinking, nobody will be able to fix this. This can't be done. And my spiritual teacher, she didn't say these words, and I heard them this way because honestly, communication is so funny, anyways. That people will say something to you and we hear it however we hear it. I was at the gym this morning and asked my trainer to take a picture of me. And I said, go stand over there. And I know she heard me say, like, order her, go stand over there, because she repeated it back. So we hear things differently. But what I heard from that spiritual teacher was, get over yourself, about my by bigness of my excuse about that $500,000 tax lien. And this is the point. These two stories, whether my excuse was big or my excuse was a 500-pound piano, which was really little in, the scheme of things, we all have to say to ourselves, get over your story, because that's what an excuse is. It's a story. It's a story that she was too old.
Excuses, you must hear them too. It's thinking about some of the other excuses I've heard, and they're always to hear them from people, and they're big in their minds, but they are ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wait, I remember one involved with that was the chauffeur's day off, so they couldn't possibly do this other thing. The chauffeur's day off. I mean, what does that mean? What does that even mean? I don't have a chauffeur. I somehow get around that.
Well, yeah, that's what it is, though. And so that's one of those first steps and that's the first chapter in the book, is get over your story. I say get over yourself, but it sounds nicer when you say get over your story, because that's what keeps us stuck. Our silly stories, because that's what an excuse is. We've made up a story in our head that we now believe, and then we keep operating from that story. And until we stop operating from our stories and stop operating from the truth of our own power, then we will stay stuck. It's inevitable, because the universe says, oh, you want that excuse? Here, you can have it. I agree with you, because all the universe does is agree with us. It says, yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right.
It's because of this ridiculous nonsense thing you made up in your head. Yes, you can't go to medical school because 5 years later you'll be 50 years old. Yeah, either way, you're going to be 50 years old. So do something with that time.
I wish. I'm thinking about going to law school. That's my new thing. And I have that conversation with myself. Well, you're 70, you'll be 80 by the time you would practice. And I thought, maybe not. And for me, it's not about an excuse.
My life lived to be almost 100.
Yeah, so exactly.
80 is like middle age. I mean,
exactly.
It doesn't even matter now. I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Today is the first day.
Yes.
Of a glorious future. I don't care how old you are right this minute. Today is the first day of this great, great future.
Mm-hmm.
And when people learn to think that way, they see this great. I don't care if it's 20 years, it could be 10 years.
Right. Or it could be tomorrow. And that's what I find so fascinating, is that I'm a country western girl. So they don't even call it country western music anymore. They call it country. But I was country before country was cool. And there's a great song that says, live like you were dying. And he's talking about basically having cancer or something, he's going to die. But the fact of the matter is that this is the thing that I share with everybody as well. It doesn't matter whether you think you're going to have another 20 years or another 40 years or 50. What are you doing today to live as if this is your last day? Now, this is a really interesting teeter-totter, if you want, to live through, because we have to begin to start living our lives as if this is our last day, because we all know people who didn't get another day. And God forbid it's one of our family members. And so begin to really acknowledge our loved ones every day, tell them we love them, really experience them. And also, how am I so joyful today that if I lay down in bed tonight and this was my last opportunity, or I was in, God forbid, an automobile crash or some horrific thing, have I done what I could do in this lifetime to be present, to be productive, to live on purpose, to be the version of myself that when people are standing over my casket or at my memorial, they have the most amazing things to say about me? Or am I going to have people say, oh, well, she kind of wasted her life. She sat around watching television. She was on her screen all the time and, blah, blah, blah. So
TV out. You don't need a TV. Throw it out.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't watched TV. No, the only reason I do watch TV 1 hour a day because I want to be there with my husband. He watches a lot of TV, and
Yeah.
I spend that's the way I get to spend time with him. I spend 1 hour watching the news with him. That's it. I don't watch the news. I hold his hand and I
Yeah.
talk with him. That's what I do.
Oh, yeah.
But the point is, yes, I agree with you about that. But I
Mhm.
also
Mhm.
I've come to think one of the things that we do if we're doing that is we're also not taking care of our health. And as
Right.
we get older, it's very easy to let our health slip, and you can't do that because
Mhm.
it's just possible that life will play a funny, funny trick on you.
Mhm.
And as it did with some of the women in my life, and
Yeah.
it'll let you live to be 100. More and more people are doing that. And if I
Yeah.
live to be 100, I'm going to be fitter on that last day of my life than I ever was when I was 60, when I was
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
So I'm getting out there and I'm exercising for
Hmm.
1 hour a day, first thing in the morning. The sun's not up
Yeah.
yet. I don't care. I'm going to be out there
Yeah.
walking. I'm going to be out there on
Hmm.
a tricycle because I don't trust bikes anymore. I'm not quite as steady as I used to be. So
Hmm.
I'm going like this a million miles
Yeah.
an hour on my tricycle rather. But the point is, you want to be fit, very fit. So you put in some time each day, making sure you're very
Absolutely.
fit now and every day.
That's so important. And my mom is 88 and she comes from a generation that was very sedentary. I mean, believe it or not, they weren't out, even though they may have been doing movement because right now there's so many, especially kids that aren't moving because they're on their screens. And so I look at her and say, there is no way that I am going to be 88 years old and be in that meat suit because that's really what we're. We have these beautiful things that we walk around. We call them bodies. I call them meat suits from time to time
Yeah,
because the fact of
yeah.
the matter is, we take care of our cars better than we take care of our bodies,
Yeah,
which is
we
insane.
gotta stay fit in this body. I feel I don't really I feel better than I felt when I was in my 40s because I didn't
Yeah.
take as careful care of myself
Right.
then as I do now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm
I was
fit.
in the gym recently and I was carrying a big kettlebell on I don't know, a rubber band thing that my trainer had me doing. And this woman, I know, I didn't ask her age, but I know she was younger than me. And she looked at me as if, well, how can she even do that? And I thought, wow, that's amazing because I said, I haven't been doing that particular exercise for many, many years, but I have been taking care of my body. And it doesn't mean that I'm pristine. So I don't want to lead anybody to believe that I'm like, I don't eat a cookie and some sugar ever, once in a while. But the fact of the matter is that if we are not conscious, like every other aspect of our life, if we're not conscious about our thoughts, we're not conscious about our actions, which our actions are all the things that we do, including moving our bodies. If we're not conscious about our feelings and we're not conscious about our words, then we are unconscious. I mean, you're either conscious or you're unconscious. So if we are unconsciously behaving, we are not consciously taking sacred action for ourselves. And I was sharing with somebody recently, they were talking about the Bible, and I said, you know what, the first verse I think it's the first verse, says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God.
And it
What
worked.
does that mean? What does that mean? Well, your word is not just the spoken word, right? Because in the beginning, the word was God. So all words, everything that we do in the form of a word, because Legos. It's not Legos, the Greek word for it, but
But
it
look,
means
yeah.
everything that we think, everything that we speak, everything that we feel, and everything that we do. That is our word. That's the word. So when we are doing that, when we speak, think, and feel and act, we are in prayer because that's spiritual. And if we begin to acknowledge that everything that we do is sacred and it has that prayerful impact, in other words, we are putting it out into this beautiful consciousness and it comes back in exact form, then we would change a lot of the things that we do. But we take for granted this life that we've been given and then go out into the world and do things that are not sacred, that don't support us and don't support the entire planet, meaning other people that we run into. And we don't see other people as the reflection of God, because we're all one anyways. So when I say namaste, the God in me recognizes the God in you, that's everybody, not just some people. So it's really, I think it's a concept that's been lost, especially over time, that we are too individualized. We are too, this duality of you're wrong, I'm right has left, the cosmos in a little bit of disarray. And the fact is that we're all just doing the best that we can. And we are all children of the one. So I'm so right on with you, because our health really comes first before even the wealth. Because if we don't pay attention to our health, all the money in the world doesn't do us any good.
It's harder to show people love and to have the energy to teach the things that you want to help people to know and to understand if you don't have the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Another way to stay healthy is intermittent fasting, which I really believe in.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered it by accident, but it's just a matter of eating, just a very few hours a day and not eating for most of the time, because that puts you into ketosis
Yeah.
and allows your body to clean itself out, which is a wonderful thing. So I start eating at 11 or 12, and then I just eat for 6 hours and don't eat
Mm-hmm.
after about 5:30, and that's it.
Well, I
And
mean, but if you think about it, our world, well, first of all, we obviously the statistics show that the obesity factor is off the chart. So why is the obesity factor off the chart? Because people are eating too much food and too much of the wrong food. And the way I heard about intermittent fasting originally was, and this really stuck with me, is we are giving our gut a break, right? Because
whatever it
we
is,
have abused.
it works.
I know
I
that,
feel
but
so
but
healthy now.
we've over abused our gut. And think about it. Literally, God, it's been 30 years now since I was 100 pounds overweight. I used to weigh over 200 pounds, and what I know is when I eat too much, like I know what that feels like.
Little
My
bitty
body
meal
goes,
is all you need then. I mean, it's amazing how your body just shifts into health when you start doing.
exactly. But that's the point, is that if you think about it, and I don't want to, that whole fat shaming thing. The fact of the matter is that I can see people throughout my day that they're 300, 400 pounds. And I know that's an eating situation. That isn't, all the other things they want to say. But the fact of the matter is that you have overused, you have overloaded your system. And so even beginning with a small intermittent fast will begin to allow your system to recalibrate, as you said, that go into ketosis to really just allow your body to reset, because we're not allowing that to happen.
You feel so healthy and you have so much energy and it's such a health.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a couple of years now. Someone told me what it was and I kind of scoffed, but I started doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I started feeling so much healthier and had more energy. And
Yeah.
oh, I think I've lost probably 60 pounds or something, but it was a very slow
Mm-hmm.
process, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is healthier anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
It's great.
You think about all the things we overindulge in,
Yeah.
right? Stress. We are the stress, planet now. That's everybody's on, overdrive with stress. We overeat. We abuse our bodies by overeating. And then we overindulge in dopamine, because that's really what any kind of an addiction is just looking for dopamine hits. And so I know as an addict that what you do is you stress your brain chemicals out by creating that much dopamine that it just doesn't really know how to respond anymore. So whether it's scrolling or going to the gym too much or being a workaholic, there's all these addictions out there in the world that are actually, honestly, they're okay addictions. Like mine wasn't an okay addiction, but workaholism, because I have that one too. I'm a recovering workaholic. But that's condoned by society. If you're a workaholic, what does that mean? You are really a driver. You struggle. You go hard. You go fast. You don't stop working. But that's not healthy either. So if we begin to look at how we overindulge in all of these areas of our life, then we can see how we are taxing this beautiful body that we walk around in. And it's no wonder that we can't get to a place that I talk about in my book of feeling that I'm actually deserving of abundance because I have oversaturated myself with all the things that are not good for me. There's no room in there for the good. It's like it's repelling it because the old parable about you can't learn from a full cup. You have to empty your cup. We need to empty our cup of these things. We need to let go of all of these distractions that we have in our lives so that we can really get still and listen to what our intuition is telling us.
Yeah, I think that it's very important for people to love themselves. A
Yes.
lot of people think that they're loving the world, but I don't think you can really love others until you've learned how to love yourself in a very healthy
No,
way.
not at all.
In a healthy, positive, joyous way. Love yourself, love those
Mm-hmm.
close to you, love your family, love your life,
Mm-hmm.
and think about how precious each breath is that you take.
Yes. Yes. And
Each
that's the
people you
gratitude
meet.
that I talk about. Yes. It
Yes.
is. And literally you're so right that we don't love ourselves because we live in this crazy I'm so excited to be during this time because I believe that there's a big shift going on. And yet it's also all the stuff that happens in the world around there's so much available to us. And I think my biggest pet peeve these days are influencers. How can you love yourself as the unique expression of God? The unique expression of the one. How can you love yourself when you are constantly comparing yourself to everything out there, which we now call influencers? Like if I become that, then I can love myself because then I can be that thing that I believe
No,
that
no.
I'm missing in my life. So we have to begin to look at inside of us. And this is for me, I feel really scared sometimes. And that's not a place I like to go because I believe positivity is what brings us what we want. But, when I look at young girls that they buy into these influencers and just know that does not promote your own uniqueness. What are you that's so different than everybody else? Let that freak flag fly and be that person. Because that is, if we just lived on a planet with all these unique individuals, how fun would that be? Instead of everybody trying to be like somebody else.
At the end of each of these episodes, I always say to each person listening, you in particular are infinitely and perfectly loved by God. And it's really true. There's never been anyone who was you before, and there never will
That's
be
right.
you again. You are uniquely and perfectly loved by God. God loves you in particular, and you are the most loved being who
Mm-hmm.
ever has existed. And that's
Yep.
really true.
Yep.
And God has insisted that I must say that every time
Yes.
because people don't believe that of themselves. What's special
I
about
know.
me? What's special about me? Well,
Right.
what's special about you is that God loves you uniquely and perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else has ever been you before or will be
Yeah.
again. And people need to understand that. Other people may be, nice, pretty, wonderful, but you are you and
Mm-hmm.
perfect and beautiful just as you are.
Yeah.
And people don't really quite get that. I've said that to them. I've said that to people when I spoke with them individually, and they don't quite
Mm-hmm.
see that. But I can see it. I can see it in their face. I can see that.
Yeah.
Why can't people see that when they look in a
I think it,
mirror?
it really is. It is all of the impressions, the imprinting that we have going on in the world. And that's why, for me, it is so important to communicate to people that want to see a better version of their life, let go of all literally just let go of screens because that
Oh,
is
yes.
the
Throw the
crux of
screen
so
out.
much of
It's
this
just
because
not
it's so
worthy of you.
it's
Yes.
so impressionable and literally, I mean, I've been doing some research on it recently because of the advent of AI. They've taken those algorithms that they've talked about. Social media was a movie many years ago before AI came on the scene, but that they had the technology to make sure. I mean, remember Amazon? Do you remember Amazon years and years and years ago when they were a book place? Like all you bought on Amazon was a book. That was it. Like literally, it's hard to believe that that was the case, but Amazon sold you a book. So you would go onto Amazon and you would buy a book, and then they would automatically say, or they would send you emails or however they communicated with you. Here's another book I think you'll like, right? So the idea that these computers, literally these computer systems know what you like. So it's been gone from Amazon on a book to television programs, to your social media, to even your AI. The AIs are trained to give you information, which, I give my AI the right training, thank God. But the fact is that if we don't understand that we are being given information outside of us that tells us how to think, and we don't think for ourselves, it is so easy to be influenced. And I always kind of compare it to cults, literally. And social media is like a cult.
Yeah.
And if you think about cults in general, who do they prey on? Who does a cult leader, all the different cults that have ever been established, they prey on the people that are weak and they don't have an identity and they don't know the direction that they're going. So if you want to have that life that's so fulfilling, you have to begin to know who you are, know what your unique qualities are, and then embrace them and share them with the world. But we don't, because we don't know who we are.
Yeah, I don't, it's hard for me to understand why people don't want the best for themselves, but it's just that they don't feel they're worthy of it. But I know that's what you're trying to do as well, to build people up and help them understand that they are so
Right.
loved by God. And
And
who
also
not who are they
powerful.
to say I'm not worthy when God is saying you are so worthy of my
Right.
love? What else is there that's more important than my love?
Right. And one of my favorite verses in the Bible is, it will be given unto you, pressed down, shaken up, and
And
overflowing
running
into
over,
your lap.
yes, yes.
Right. Right. I mean, how much better does it get if that's the
No,
promise? If
that's,
that's the promise,
that's what Jesus
right?
said. Yes,
Why would I worry? Why would I worry?
yes. Oh, my dear, we've come to the end of our time. What do you want people to take away from our conversation today?
That you are the magic, that you create your entire life, and that once again, find your own uniqueness. Just really go within and know what that is. Get off the screens and go to my website and get my book for free, because I want you to begin to get on this path. And the website is www.thedebbidobbins.com, because I am the Debbie Dobbins.
And her website is on the material below this episode so that you don't have to drive off the road to write that down. It's already there below this episode. And you stay right there. I just have to tell everybody who is our next week's guest, and I'll be right back. Oh, my dear ones, hasn't this been fun? Oh, I'm so sorry, but once again, we have come to the end of our time. This has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes, and I'm so happy you could be with us today. But again, please never forget that you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began and you never will end. If you're alive now, you are alive forever. When you get that, when you really understand all the implications of that fact, it changes everything in your life for the better. Next week, our guest will be Karen Anderson. She's our wonderful guru of all things animal in the afterlife, and she will be with us for the 9th time. Karen is a gifted natural psychic, and she loves animals, so of course she's a gifted animal psychic. And since so many people deeply love and cherish their animal friends who have gone on before them, and animals have very short lifespans, my goodness. Someone told me once, buying a puppy is like getting pain in a fur wrapper, and that's certainly true. But Karen's books about animals in the afterlife are very popular, and because wonderfully all the afterlife news about our dear animal friends is good news, I think you're going to love hearing Karen talk. So please be with us next week and hear her really beautiful, comforting news. Hear it for yourself. Today, we've been talking with Debbie Dobbins, who's delightful, and she's been with us for the second time. She helps entrepreneurs rewrite their personal life stories about money, power, and purpose. And actually, she helps everyone, as you can hear. And really, life is the story you tell yourself. So if you're not telling yourself a good life story, you might want to talk to Debbie because she can help you with that. She's writing a new book now, but her previous book is great. It's called Your Inner Billionaire. And it's a blend basically of all the kinds of self-talk you need to do to make your own life story a much better one. She calls herself the Queen of Magic for a reason. Her mission is to help others remember that they too really hold the magic wand in their own lives. We've come to the end of our time, but I should just mention here that our dear friend Craig Hogan is the president and guru of Seek Reality Online. Look, you are going to go to the afterlife, whether you like it or not. Some people say, I'm not going. I'm just going to, I think, blink out. Well, you can't blink out. That's not an option. So you may as well learn what the afterlife is like before you get there so you can have even more fun once you get there. And that's all the time we have for now. So once again, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes, and I'm sorry, but this is the end for this week, but next week we will be back. And meanwhile, please enjoy and make the most of this coming week in our one reality, and always know that you in particular and above all others, you are a powerful eternal being, and you most of all in this entire universe. God loves you most of all. You are infinitely, eternally, perfectly, and forever loved.
You've been listening to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Join us every week as we explore what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about the one reality we all share. Knowing the truth changes everything.